right. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
So the panel is about lending integrated perps on Hyperliquid. And I believe Hyperliquid has kind of a very interesting combination of enabling perp markets and the Hyper EVM stack. And this is not only interesting for power users, but also combine programmatically and build applications, protocols, and new interesting opportunities. So to kick it off, I'd like to hear from everyone what you're currently building and where you are on the spectrum of risk versus opportunity.
Sure. So I'm Kurt. I'm with HyperFi. We are lending for traders on Hyperliquid. We have noticed that, as many have, that the main user base of Hyperliquid is traders, and specifically ones that have recently acquired a fairly large sum of money through the airdrop. So we are building bespoke products to better facilitate their needs. We're basically based on Aave v3 pooled markets with Fraxel isolated markets, and we have a couple of other products in the works, special HIP3 markets and card spend. And on the risk curve, I would say that specifically because we are lending for traders, we open up a lot more tools on the long tail side of things for traders to take more directional bets and execute strategies that they would like to execute.
Perfect. So I'm Joao. I'm building Hyperwave. Hyperwave is currently building the best DeFi vaults for Hype in the market with the highest yields currently. And we are specialized in vault strategies. And I'm currently also building the first credit card on-chain for Hyperliquid. And in terms of risk, I'll say that we are more into a set and forget type of investor. So we invest in our DeFi vaults, and you can just leave it for whatever amount of time you want. Then you can withdraw whenever you want. But I'll say because we are on Hyperliquid, and Hyperliquid is of course risky, I'll say it's definitely a risky operation and definitely for a riskier type of investor and appetite. But I will say that in terms of DeFi is one of the less risky things on Hyperliquid, I will say.
So yeah, my name is Felix. I work for Rysk Protocol. We are building the institutional grade portfolio manager for DeFi, launching first on Hyperliquid, Hyper EVM. We are mostly focused on risk and quantifying risk for Hyperliquid traders to begin with. So with Hyper EVM, the diversity of protocols that exist today, and diversity of risks, of course, smart contract risk, counterparty risk, and market risk, there's a very big lag on risk assessment, especially like taking into account, perps with 10x leverage, whatever it is. So yeah, we were aiming to fill that gap with something we call QX Terminal.
Hey all, my name is Dan. As someone asked, my last name is actually not Rysk, but that's the name of the protocol, and it was kind of memorable, I guess. But yeah, Rysk is basically we are making the volatility layer of DeFi. What that means is that we're trying to generate yield out of option strategies by making them accessible to anyone. We launched a new product on Hyperliquid, on HyperEVM about a few months ago. Now we are the top DeFi options protocol in DeFi, one of the highest growth on HyperEVM as well. In terms of where we are, in the risk curve, the protocol is called Rysk, so I guess that's kind of an answer there. But in reality, what we're trying to do is we want to put the risk knowing, basically the user has to know the risk. So the main idea of actually the name as well is risk with the Y, because you can get a yield, but you have to be aware of what's behind. And as a protocol, we're taking this approach where we minimize every risk at the protocol level. So there is no right authentication, the collateral is locked, there is no counterparty risk, at least we try to eliminate that. So the user is taking the risk that he wants at the product level, but the protocol is the strongest and the most solid. And it seems, that should be by design, but what we've seen in the last few weeks, that's actually not something happening in DeFi. And with Rysk, we're taking the opposite approach. So the risk is at the product level, the user knows what he's taking, and that's why they love the product.
Cool. Yeah, very interesting. And I'd like to start the discussion with talking about HLP, the HLP Vault, because I think this is a prime example for tokenizing something that is sitting on the hypercore and that we can utilize on the EVM. And maybe a question to Joao. What do you think, besides a wrapped HLP version, is possible to build by just tokenizing something?
Well, for us, it's about giving the users more opportunities, more yields, and more strategies, right? So if you look at, for example, Hyperwave or our HLP Vault, the strategies, the integrations that we are doing is some of the best in the market. And I think that, especially because we came from the LRT and LST space, and now with HLP, you can have way more possibilities and give way more yields and strategies for the user. So again, I will say this once again, for us, it's about the yields and about the user, right? So people, of course, some more technical investor wants to know exactly what is under the hood, but it's in the end of the day, it's how much money are you getting? How much money are you getting and how safe your money is. So that's what we are specializing into. And to have the HLP Vault gives us not only a door into the Hyperliquid world, but also a new way of doing a new vault and, again, more yields. So because, for example, we also do arbitrage on our vaults as one of our strategies, when was this big Black Swan event where everything went down very fast, we catch that arbitrage and our vault went up to more than 100% yields and is still currently at 100-something yield. And we'll still stay there for a couple months, I'll say. So I'll say that it's amazing that we can have more products like this, and it's a gateway to Hyperliquid, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that basically there's what you said, or basically a 30-day average on this P&L trade is like sitting
exactly,
like really high, and
exactly.
yes, people are getting interested in high yields, right? And also I think this is Felix. I think you just showed me the your terminal, right, where you're listing all the yield options that are currently on HyperEVM. What do you think are the most interesting or the most important yield options that you're showing there, and why did you build this terminal?
Yes, well, I think first there's an interesting diversity in what you can and how you can generate yield. I mean, you do have cases like Hyperwave where you have some share on a vault that is exposing you to whatever interesting opportunity there is. And in this case, we have Hypercore with very interesting opportunities. We'll talk about tokenization of Perps and what can be tokenized. And here, tokenizing HLP exposure is great. So that will be one type. And you will have the lending protocols like Kurt and you know, how lending, also exposing yourself as a user to different debt markets, to different collateral, and then you could have something like Rysk, which is a completely different segment, just exposing yourself to the options and whatever yields you can generate through from the premiums. So definitely very big diversity in yields. Also risks, very different. So from that point of view, I think on our side, the main focus is helping the user understand like all of those different risks. Yeah, you can have, even within lending protocols, the yield differs so much every day.
Yeah.
So for several reasons, right? It can be just simply TVL, low being large or not. And, yeah. But yeah, ultimately, I think the user has to be aware of what they're getting into.
Yeah, I mean, most of the most interesting opportunities that we see in like Hypercore and HyperEVM are enabled by those unique technical underlyings HRP3 and CoreWriter, right? So what's your take on HRP3 and where is it moving next? What will be made available in this unique setup?
Yeah, so I mean, coming from the Hyperliquid ecosystem, we are all hype maxis. So if anyone on this panel is even the slightest bit bearish about what HIP3 brings, we are in the wrong industry. We are extremely bullish on perpify everything, the AWS of liquidity. I mean, you can take a look at the equities that are currently being offered by units, right? You have, at this point, who even knows, they're adding 2, 3, 4 every single day of the tech stocks of the S&P 500. We have the Tech 100, the top 100 equities there as well, which you can take directional bets on with a lot of leverage. And that has existed on the Solana ecosystem in the past and other ecosystems before, but those ecosystems at current don't have 20% of all Perps liquidity or all Perps volume that is going through like any Perps platform. So, right, and when you can tap into that immense liquidity, and then you have the tools that are given to us like CoreWriter as well, and we can tokenize those, offer them as collateral for these strategies, specifically my platform, because we're lending for traders, right? You have traders that want to take directional bets, and even going back to what we were talking about before with like rapid LP, they want to be able to lever up their LP so they can borrow again, and then go and execute other strategies. Let's say they want to get the Hyperwave LP, and they want to borrow 60% of that, and take a lever. Going back to IP3, like we are extremely bullish, and we ourselves are launching a very exotic HIP3 market on the Pokemon Index. So we are taking the 1999 base set first edition Pokemon cards. We have acquired $1.5 million of Pokemon cards, and we are going to be collateralizing them and allowing you to take directional bets on those on an HIP3 market through our token called Pokemon. Being involved in the infrastructure of building out an HIP3 market, seeing what types of environments and collectibles and things that you can even make these markets on has made me even more bullish. Super bullish on a company called Trove, which I believe is doing Counter-Strike skin markets. And these are billion-dollar or several billion-dollar like market cap evaluation assets. And you can do this with any markets. I mean, we're starting with equities. We're going to bring Pokemon. You'll see Counter-Strike skins, and you might see the price of eggs being speculated on an HIP3 market, right? So like the doors that it opens and the composability that Hyperliquid lets you do, especially with the lending platform, not bullish.
Yeah, so basically putting a leverage position on a Pikachu or something.
Exactly, right? Like you want to lever up your exposure, and Charizard, bring it, do it.
The most bullish thing I've ever heard.
I know.
So for us, we are doing also very bullish on HIP3. We are using it to also launch our first credit card on chain, which will be on top of HIP3 and which will be fully on chain. So the difference between, so Mike from EtherFi was here exactly in the last panel. I use the EtherFi card a lot. We all do use it, the company, and we are very bullish on that card. So the big difference here is that we are bringing exactly the same type of card, but on Hyperliquid, and it will be fully on-chain. So when you tap the card, the swap will be on-chain on Hyperliquid. And this way we will cut the 2% Visa and MasterCard fee. So it will be a little bit different from what Mike is doing, but we are going we are currently working on making the first credit card fully on-chain without any third parties because of HIP3 too. So extremely bullish.
So I'm mostly focused on the Rysk side. All of this is great, right? Leveraging your Charizards. But I guess like, being able to simply capture that at full level, something like where you are, that's what we're going to be. So yeah, very, very bullish, and I'm very excited because what you can prevent complexity of everything. Definitely was somebody to say, hey, but like, let's just think a little bit about where we're going, how fast we're going, right? I think that's very clear from the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I'm super hyped to actually be supporting that side of the equation.
Yeah, gluing it all together, right? Eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I actually have a similar take to Felix. Like I'm excited about HIP3 overall, but I do think there are some limitations and risks that we need to be aware of. So the way I say it is like, it's good to kind of like decentralize the launch of certain instruments, because as an Hyperliquid team, probably there are also some like compliance, for example, regulation, like launching a perp on stock or whatever. So you can somehow decentralize that launch, and I think it makes a lot of sense. But one thing to keep in mind is always like you need most of the exotic instrument that may be very liquid, that may be very easy to manipulate. You still need market making for that, so you need to figure it out, like who's gonna market make and at which conditions, right? And we've seen like even Hyperliquid, when you think about some of those pre-launch type of perps that got very easy manipulated, right? Happened with Plasma, recently Monad, I think. So my view about IP3 is like you can use it for launch, I think for equity it makes a lot of sense. For FX, I think there are definitely a lot of instruments, and I'm thinking about long term. There are a lot of experiments that you can do with IP3, but I think we also need very cautious on how we use it, because those instruments, they have an associated risk around that. So it's important that this idea of like perpify everything, yeah, you can do it, but there is a very big risk associated to it, and especially on the liquidity side. So it's very easy to get burned out of it. And my best example is that when you even look at Hyperliquid, after 2 years, probably like only 5 perps that they do 80% of the volume as usual. And we've seen a few days ago, actually, most of the other perps, they also got removed by the main core, because those instruments, like maybe they're good for a couple of weeks because it's the new meme coin, whatever. But thinking about long term, I think we need to make sure that those instruments are taking account about all the risk and liquidity concern about it. But overall, I think it's very cool that anyone can launch a perp market without building a new perp exchange. Like that's definitely interesting. Like the Pokemon thing, I think is fun. Like it's definitely some experiment that I like to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, coming back to the original panel topic, right? Lending integrated perps. You talk, okay, it's possible, and I think this is the really great thing. We have the possibilities to do things, but that also means people will do it. People put a 20x Pikachu and borrow against it. So, what do you think? Like, will this get out of hand? Or will we basically come back and say, okay, well, it is possible, but let's structure products that are basically more responsible?
We are in an ecosystem where the risk curve is defined by the user, right? If there is a user that wants to go as far down the risk curve as they want to, there's going to be a protocol that is going to create something for that user, right? They're going to make bespoke like trading instruments, like essentially something that we do. We're not going to slide all the way down the risk curve, right? We're not going to let you tokenize and collateralize your 100 PSA1 Pikachus and then lend them to get something else, right? There's going to be some risk parameters that are set typically by very experienced risk teams like ours at Objective Labs that will be handling these things, right? Of course, you're going to have protocols and projects that allow you to slide all the way down that risk curve. But in general, the composability of Hyperliquid and HyperEVM allows you to these products that have significant backing, that are weather tested, and allow you to put them up as collateral in places that you normally wouldn't be able to, right? That's what all these tools are for, is all this composability, right? And if you are degenerate enough, I suppose, you can go find any way to loop your things. And you'll probably find those realistically on Hyperliquid. That doesn't mean that that's going to become the norm, and these institutions that you would normally trust in the first place probably won't allow that. But definitely possible, and I'm sure there will be some venues that allow you to do it.
You want to say something?
Yes. So from our side, in terms of risk, so one thing that we have been checking also is, especially with large investors and family offices, when you are onboarding them, one thing that we have been asked a lot is, can you insure your vaults? So this is something that we are also talking with a couple insurance providers, such as, for example, Nexus Mutual, that is also here at the event. So we can offer this type of insurance to especially institutions that want to de-risk a little bit and don't want to be fully degens. So this is something that if you want to have more mass adoption, especially on Hyperliquid, you need to start providing insurance and more type of collateral.
I mean, of course, but the question is, are we already on this like risk being normalized curve a bit too far on the right, where okay, like big companies look at risk strategies, still blow up, and yeah, I don't know, positions are available in Rabi and in MetaMask, and I think this creates an environment.
Yeah, but the thing is, this risk that you are saying is more on the retail side, not on the institutional side. So the people that take the 2,000 million leverage, this is the degen kids, it's not a family office with like $2 billion assets under management that will take this type of risk. So I think that you need to have curated proposals and curated type of risk metrics and opportunities for these two type of clients.
True, true, true. I think in the previous panel we heard that people, and I think especially institutions, on the one hand they don't care where the yield is coming from, as long as you can quantify the risk.
Yes.
Can you share this experience? Maybe Dan can say something.
Yeah, I mean, people care where the yield is coming from. Like, it's probably the main question that we have in our Telegram group every single day, because people see this, high APR and like, and because they're not also used to options, like they don't really know. And so my main take about this, and also back to the original question, I think most of the user, they don't have the capacity, and probably like not even, they're even lazy to do their research. So if they see some very high APR, yeah, some of them, they may be skeptical, but like at the end of the game, they're gonna put money in. And we've seen what happened with like stream finance recently, right? That to me is the worst example of this industry. Like, we basically took bad practices of TradFi and we even like made it worse. So I do think it's our job as builders to reduce that, because I'm sure that there will be some users that are gonna take all the risk, but then the system blew up. And then the problem is that everyone else building even legit stuff, they're gonna be like on the curve of be like, oh, DeFi doesn't make sense, it's all a scam, it's like it's all replication and so on. So even on the, like, to me, it's like, what we should do as builders is like, we have this responsibility of trying to build a better finance, which is something for the long term, which is something that should, be attractive to institutions and everything like that. So making sure that the user understand the yield is part of the game. Making sure that we don't give them the worst yield possible is also something else. And at the beginning, you mentioned, for example, the HLP, right? HLP main purpose was not to be tokenized. Was actually to bootstrap liquidity for those markets. And instead of relying on your market makers, you build your own market maker with decentralized liquidity. It was a great product. It still is a great product, but we've seen attacks basically in the last couple of months over and over because people started to understood how that works. So its purpose is not to be collateral, at least at the first place. Now people realize, oh, that can also be used as collateral. It's also very good, strategy is performing, is uncorrelated. I'm taking the flow of all those degens on the other side, but the main purpose when Jeff designed that, it was to actually bootstrap liquidity of the exchange. So we also need to make sure that we understand why we're building certain things and what is the purpose on the ecosystem. So again, like I like, obviously we built it, but like I like when users are coming to Rysk and they're like, okay, I click this button, I know what I'm selling, I know what I'm doing, I know what happened exactly in the scenario, and they understand exactly what they do. So if they get 50% APR, it's because they're taking a very risk position. But once they click the button, everything below that is most secure as possible. So there is no other risk involved. Obviously, smart contract risk, we're taking that for granted in DeFi. So that's kind of my approach. So even when they ask, where the yield is coming from, it's a super legit question. But as a builder, we should make sure that the yield is legit. So that's kind of like our approach. And yeah, I think it should be kind of standardized, but apparently it's not.
It's not standardized, yeah. But also, I think it's a bit of demand, right? Users demand high yield, and then basically what we also hear on the Looping Collective side is, yeah, why don't you crank up the leverage a bit? And it's like people want this. People want a bit of degen, I think. And it's interesting to think, okay, why has this been built? And what I'm asking myself now is, okay, what else can we build with this perp engine, or basically the connection between core and HyperLVM that is not just unresponsibly put leverage out there?
I can give you, like, for example, how we're looking at their risk, right? So we're doing options. Our counterparties, they're buying those options and they need to hedge. So right now they use Hypercore or like Binance, whatever they want. Now, something we're thinking is like, can we productize this and open to anyone? So why we doing, why people can just deposit into our strategy, for example, was buying. So the strategy could be very like basically a bridge between Hypercore, HyperVM. You buy options from Rysk, you hedge straight away using Hypercore, and most of our options are, ETH, BTC. So you're trying to minimize the liquidation risk and so on. So this is kind of like one of these use cases that I personally like a lot. What means is like you're kind of decentralizing, and it's basically the same concept of HLP. But now, this product is not risk-free. So if you deposit into that, you need to know that you're taking a lot of option exposure and a lot of perp exposure. That's the reality of it, and I think we need to make sure they understand that. The problem is, if this instrument is going to be used by others and to build something on top of it, then it gets like even more risky and risky all along the curve. So I think, and I'm extremely bullish on Hyperliquid for this reason, because basically we are building a financial ecosystem around a product already work and it's very liquid. And it's probably like, the way I say it is like we are building an entire new ecosystem around an on-chain Binance. That's the reality. So that's definitely the value added, but we don't need to, go too much detail into it, or we're gonna blow up the whole system.
Yeah.
Nice, nice, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess we are all bullish, and we talked lots about risk, and I think it's very important to talk about risk when it comes to leverage. But yeah, just to close it, we have 4 minutes left. What are you most bullish about in the future?
I mean, specifically because we're building an HIP3 market on an exotic asset, I have to be super bullish on HIP3. We're also super bullish just overall on Hyperliquid. We're integrating builder codes into our own lending integrated perpetuals platform, starting with the lending, ending with the Perps, using Hyperliquid's products. Just this entire ecosystem, we are truly believers of the House of All Finance. We do believe that all of those tools are coming on chain if most of them are not already here, and the liquidity and ecosystem that comes with it.
Nice. I think I'm bullish on everything, HIP3, builder codes. And one thing that we also talked between ourselves in the back was about the price of hype, right? So you see everything collapsing, and hype is still there, so it's not collapsing and it's still going. So that's a proof that this is the right ecosystem, this is the right community, and this is the right place to be. So, of course, very bullish on hype.
Pump it up?
Yeah, so yeah, myself, we've been also, just as context, we've also been working on other EVMs, and just saying that in this EVM we have a very good synergy between the Perps book and the EVM, and how all of that comes together, and we are building like that ecosystem as a whole. Definitely makes a big difference to any other ecosystem. So that's excellent. It's real demand, real users using the order book, and then actually using the order book across Hyperfy to actually lend to, you get real users that are willing to pay. It's very different to many other chains that we have seen, so very bullish on that.
Yeah.
I mean, bullish Hyperliquid, I guess. It's like the community is incredible, like probably one of the best I've ever seen. I'm bullish on the fact that it's all transparent, because, we've seen a lot of bad things happening in centralized exchanges and so on. Like on Hyperliquid, at least when something happens, we know and we realize how, and everything is, under our eyes, which I think to me is like the best thing. I'm bullish. I think there are a lot of nice, interesting products coming up on HyperEVM soon. I've talked to a lot of builders, and I think they're going to be like new, interesting products. So yeah, Hyperliquid, in terms of like whole ecosystem from community, I think that's the thing I'm bullish on, and obviously option strategies, I guess.
Very nice.
Not shilling at all.
Let's go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and
Thank you, guys.
that's
Thank
it.
you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.